Apparently, Steph Curry isn't a generational player, at least according to Gilbert Arenas.
Be real, how many teams have won without generational talent?
Steph is not a generational talent. Detroit.
Steph Curry's?
Steph is not a generational.
Steph not a generational.
You know what a generational? Wemby is a generational.
Bro, when I first heard this, I had the exact same look on my face as Josiah, like, what? Steph Curry is a generational? Like, I know y'all were in the league, but what are we doing here? Like, please tell me what we're doing here. And let me tell you, I love Gilbert Arenas' podcast. I wasn't going to react to this because I've accepted the fact that he does a lot of these shock value comments for views.
So, my esteemed gentleman on the couch, what changes can the league make to bring more competitive balance to both sides of the ball? Or do they even need to make these changes?
Get rid of all the Europeans. What? You just said it. You just said it.
But the more I listened to this, the more it really started to piss me off. And it's not just because he said that Steph Curry isn't generational, which he is, and I'm going to explain why later. But it's just the fact that I want y'all to listen to how many times Gilbert Arenas contradicts himself in his own explanation.
Became
a great generational means you can't mimic it. You can't mimic
at number one.
Well, you said you can't. Can you mimic Magic Johnson, 6'9" point guard with the vision? No, you can't mimic Shaquille O'Neal's body.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You can't mimic fucking LeBron James. You can't mimic Wemby. Right?
So
there's only 5 or 6.
Skill is based on like physical traits.
Physical traits is generational.
Bro, where do I even begin? Okay, so first thing first, I fundamentally disagree with what his definition of generational is. He's basically saying a generational player is someone whose game can't be mimicked and it's just based around physical gifts. Now, I do understand that there are certain players like LeBron and Shaq, who I agree are generational players who have certain abilities, whether that be size, strength, jumping ability, agility, that give them an advantage over their competition. They have God-given gifts that make them have advantages over their competition. I can understand that, but simply just having those gifts in and of itself does not make you generational. Zion Williamson, Derrick Jones Jr., and Zach LaVine aren't generational. Vince Carter, just because they can jump out of the gym, the same way John Wall isn't just generational because he's faster with the ball than anyone else on the court. What makes you generational is pairing those God-given abilities and adding production on the court, getting success, improving your skills, and separating yourself as an overall basketball player. That is what makes you generational. And part of that is skill, part of that is hard work, part of that is training, part of that is actual success on the court. It's not just being a physical specimen and that no one can replicate your game. Second of all, the sense of not being able to mimic your game is just ridiculous. Like, there are very few, if any, players in the NBA whose game cannot be mimicked. Players learn and advance the game by watching players before them and adding and taking from their game and adding it to their own. Like, we would have looked at someone like Kevin Durant 15 years ago as someone that couldn't even exist, and now we got a bunch of Kevin Durants and Chet, Wemby, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of guys that are big, Giannis, that are big and can handle the ball. So saying can't mimic your game doesn't even make sense. And I'm gonna take some of his own examples.
Think about it. Nobody could do what Michael Jordan did. We can analyze it, but we can't go out there and mimic it. Our fadeaway wouldn't look like his fadeaway.
Bitch, are you dumb? Pardon me? Are you dumb?
The moves, the croc, we couldn't do that. Same thing with Magic Johnson. Everybody couldn't go out there and be a 6'9" point guard, sitting there doing little shit like that. Physical traits is generational. Like somebody like Giannis is tweaking, right? Like, Jokic is not a generational talent.
No.
He's just a great basketball player.
Yeah.
Curry was a great basketball player.
Yeah.
She's dumb.
First of all, Magic Johnson, he didn't say anything about Magic Johnson physically that makes him generational. He talked about his passing, which is a skill. It's not a God-given ability. Maybe he is more predisposed to have good vision on the court, but so does a lot of people. He says he's a 6'9" guy that can pass the ball. Is that not what LeBron is? Is that not what Penny Hardaway is? Is that not what Luka is? In fact, he said Jokic isn't generational. And I'm like, Jokic is 7 foot that basically plays point guard for Denver. No, he doesn't start at the point guard position, but anybody who watches basketball knows that Jokic is essentially the point guard for the Denver Nuggets, and he's taller than Magic was. Why is he not generational then by your own argument? He is someone whose game we have never seen mimicked. I just gave you like 5-6 players who have mimicked Magic Johnson's playstyle. The only difference is they didn't have the overall career that Magic Johnson had. They didn't have the MVPs. They didn't have as many championships, and that was the separation point. But as far as being a tall, big guard, I just gave you 6 of them. Michael Jordan was the foundation of your argument as a generational, and everybody who is anybody in basketball knows that Kobe Bryant's game was a carbon copy of his from the post fadeaway fade work. Maybe he didn't jump as high as Michael Jordan did or hang in the air as long, I'll give you that. But as far as mimicking his game, it's about as close as you can get. So that argument in and of itself makes absolutely no sense. You can mimic a lot of people's game. You just don't have the overall success and career and accolades that they may have achieved. And that is what makes them generational, which is why Steph Curry is a generational player. Yeah, sure, you can be 6'3" and shoot threes, sure, but you can't shoot it off the dribble with as much consistency and range as Steph Curry can. Nobody ever has. That is why he is generational, because he can do it at such a high efficiency and so consistently over the years, and it leads to on the court success. That's what makes him generational. So in that same token, why is Yao Ming not generational?
Will Yao Ming be generational?
He could have been.
I think so.
Why? Because he didn't have enough career success? So is Manute Bol generational? What makes Wemby generational? We've seen 7'7" guys before. We've seen 7+ foot guys be able to dribble the ball. I agree, Wemby's generational, but it's not just because he's tall. Like not just some random physical attribute we're applying to him. In that same token, he's saying Giannis is like tweaking being generational. He's 6'11". He's basically a guard version of Shaq. If you want to talk about physical dominance on the court, whose game we've never seen before, why is he not automatically in that generational category? Like, his argument is like constantly contradicting his own points. Like, chalking Steph Curry shooting up to just hard work is crazy.
The freak of natures.
So you wouldn't say Steph shooting
Is not a freak of nature.
makes him a
It's
freak of
called
nature?
hard working.
Absolutely.
Hard working. His shooting is freak of nature.
Absolutely.
He is not a freak of nature.
You don't think other NBA players practice on their shooting? You yourself said you take X amount of thousands of shots a day. You never shot nothing even somewhat remotely like Steph Curry. You think other players, if they just trained a little harder, they just took a little more shots? Didn't Cat say he take like 1,500 shots a day?
Like I said, I know I'm putting. I gotta laugh. I'm putting up to 1,500 shots a day.
So if players just shoot just more shots a day, they could all shoot like Steph Curry. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. You're chalking up his shooting ability to just hard work. So any player that just shot as many shots off the dribble or catch and shoot as Steph Curry can shoot like Steph Curry. No, bro, no. By your own definition of not being replicated, Steph Curry's shooting ability cannot be replicated.
We asked the chat, is Steph Curry generational? 71% said yes, Gil. This is your chat for your show.
Put it like this, then they can't be Steph Curry. Can't tell your kids you can be the next Steph Curry. You can't be the next generational player.
He really sat back and was like, oh, well, then you got to tell your kids they can't be the next Steph Curry then. Like he said that like he was making a point. Like, yeah, no, duh. Obviously, your parent is going to try to encourage their kid. But no, you can't be Steph Curry. You can't be. He's the greatest shooter ever. He's one of the greatest players ever. No, you can't just become him by practicing a bunch of shots in the backyard. No, that's most likely not going to happen. He said that like that proves something. Like, yeah, most people would agree with that. Like, what are you talking about? But y'all let me know. I'm done ranting. Y'all let me know what you think. Do you think Gil's right? Do you think being generational is all about physical attributes in your game not being mimicked? Do you think Steph Curry's generational or not? I personally think Steph Curry is obviously a generational player. I think there are way more than they gave credit for. I think Tim Duncan is generational. I think Kobe Bryant's generational. I think Kareem's generational. I think there are not a lot of generational players, but I do think there's a certain amount. And it's not just based off of physical gifts and it's God-given abilities. It's God-given abilities mixed with production on the court based off of developing your overall skill set. What makes a player generational is how great they are in comparison to the other players in their era and how dominant they are against the other competition in their era. That's to me what makes a generational player. But y'all let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for rocking out with your boy. This is Zoe. This is The Last Word, and we're out of here. Thank you for watching another episode of The Last Word. Make sure you subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below so you're not missing out on any of the new content I drop on the channel. Love.